Imagine a peasant in northern France in the year 1065. He owns nothing but a coarse tunic and a wooden staff. He cannot read, and he has never been more than 10 miles from the village where he was born. Yet this man is about to begin a 6-month journey across mountain ranges, through foreign kingdoms, and across the open sea. His destination is a city he has only heard of in stories, and one he will almost certainly never see again. He is a pilgrim, and he is far from alone. Between the 4th and the 15th centuries, hundreds of thousands of Europeans, possibly millions, made this exact journey. This is the story of why they went, how they survived, and how their footsteps built the foundations of the modern West. For the medieval mind, Jerusalem was the literal center of the world. On their maps, cartographers placed it at the exact middle of the earth. It was the site of the crucifixion and the tomb of Christ. But far from being a sightseeing journey, their quest was about debt. Medieval theology taught that sins left a temporal burden on the soul, a spiritual debt that had to be paid. The church offered a solution: pilgrimage. Physical hardship combined with prayer at holy sites could reduce that burden. Priests assigned these journeys as penance from serious crimes. Sometimes, secular courts even offered pilgrimage as an alternative to a prison sentence. Going to Jerusalem was the medieval world's primary way to start over. We often imagine pilgrims as poor and barefoot, but the reality was much more crowded and diverse. Records from monasteries and hospitals show merchants, knights, and even royalty moving in the same direction. Take Count Folk of Anjou. He made the trip to Jerusalem at least 4 times between 1003 and 1039. Chronicles say he walked the final miles into the city barefoot as an act of humility. In 1064, an even larger group set out, an estimated 7,000 to 12,000 Germans led by Bishop Gunther of Bamberg. This was very close to being a moving city. However, the road did not make it easy, for it was long. From London to Jerusalem, a traveler covered roughly 3,000 miles. Most followed the Via Francigena, the road from France. They crossed the English Channel, hiked through the Great St. Bernard Pass in the Alps, and descended into the ports of Venice or Genoa. From there, they boarded merchant ships from a 6 to 8 week crossing to Jaffa. On a good day, a pilgrim walked 19 miles. At that pace, the trip took 5 to 6 months in each direction. A typical traveler from England would be away from home for over a year if they returned at all. And the dangers were constant. Bandits in the mountains, shipwrecks in the Adriatic, and sudden outbreaks of plague in the crowded Italian cities. However, for centuries, this tradition was surprisingly stable. Even after the Arab conquest of Jerusalem in 638, Christian pilgrims were generally allowed entry if they paid a fee. But the rupture happened in 1009. The Fatimid Caliph Al-Hakim ordered the destruction of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And though the church was eventually rebuilt, the shock stayed with Europe for decades. By the mid-11th century, the Seljuk Turks had moved into the region, making the roads even more dangerous. When Pope Urban called for the First Crusade in 1095, he called for an armed pilgrimage, a repentance journey that just happened to carry a sword. What did 6 centuries of walking actually build? Well, it built the infrastructure of Europe. Roads were mapped and improved to handle the traffic. Small hostels for sick travelers evolved into massive institutions. The Knights Hospitaller, for instance, began in 1048 as a single hostel for pilgrims in Jerusalem. The Knights Templar began in 1119 as an active road police that only answered to the Pope. The pilgrimage system created the bureaucracy of indulgences, the very concept Martin Luther would challenge 500 years later. More than anything, it was a massive cultural exchange. Pilgrims brought back medical knowledge, architectural styles, and manuscripts from the East. The road to Jerusalem was one of the most consequential journeys in human history. It created the trade routes, the hospitals, and the theological debates that would eventually paint the modern world. But it began with a single person deciding to walk away from everything they knew. But what do you think? Was the medieval drive for pilgrimage a search for freedom or a desperate act of religious survival? Let us know in the comments. And if you like this story, subscribe, drop a like, and share this video. And if you want to stay ahead of our releases, click the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen. See you in our next 10-minute brief.